Although October theory has been trending as a new term, the concept of it is by no means new. And I am so excited to be able to share this with you today because what I have learned about the fall and the blessings that God has for us during this season has been so helpful to me that I know it will be a blessing to you. But first, welcome back to my channel. I am Lavon, your mindset and success coach, helping you to write your own story by changing the stories that you have been telling yourself. In this session, we are going to talk about the stories that we have been telling ourselves when it comes to goals, which many find impossible to achieve. But that's not true. And let's talk about October theory and how all of this ties in. So October theory is not an actual theory, but it's more like an awakening where many people are finding that the fall is a better time to set goals and start new tasks and new projects and accomplish really great things as opposed to waiting until January 1. And in fact, people are calling it their second new year. So now I'm sure you're wondering, how does all of this tie into God and his blessings? Well, for starters, during the fall season, we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. And then continuing on to that, the Lord has two other holidays that are that he instructs his people to celebrate. So in Deuteronomy, the Lord instructs the Israelites to celebrate the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of Ingathering, expressing gratitude for the harvest. And this is why I say that the concept of October theory is more of an awakening because it has always been an important season to the Lord. And the fall is not just significant to the Lord because of the gathering of crops. No, it's also significant to the Lord because of the gathering of his people. In Ezra, when exiles were gathered to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, this happened during the month of Tishrei, which is also the month when Rosh Hashanah is celebrated. So that's just really important for you to start to see and understand as a believer that this is such a great time for you to also have that discovery and also have that awakening of why the fall season is so important. It's important to the Lord, but it's important that he wants his people to know and understand that this is an abundant season and this is a time for you to be able to get some really great things out of it. Also, I want to say that what I actually think is happening all over the internet, knowledge is increasing. And it says that in the last days, knowledge will increase. However, what I'm noticing is that while knowledge is increasing, there's not a lot of wisdom there to help balance that out. And I know, as a believer, it's not just knowledge that you need. You also need wisdom. It's kind of like if you have a seed to plant, you know that you need to plant that seed in the ground, but wisdom is knowing that you can't plant that on frozen ground. You want to wait until the spring to be able to plant that. So understanding the concept of October theory and really understanding what you can do with it and understanding the spiritual significance will really help you to get all of the benefits that the Lord has for you during this time. All right, so let's talk about some examples of what we get already out of this harvest season. So we know that we get crops. That's one thing that we can kind of skip over. We already know that happens. But during the month of September and October specifically, it is known as hiring season. Going into November and December, that continues. It's a time where the most people will get hired throughout the year. And this is good for you to know because if you are looking for a job, just, keep going. Perhaps there, an opportunity is out there for you. Or this might be a time where you can create a position for yourself. I know there was a time for me during the October month where I created a position for myself. So this is just, again, a really great time for you to tap into the blessing of the abundance. Also, during this time, this is when people will get bonuses. Companies will have extra money left over and they'll want to share that with the people who help to support them in bringing in that revenue. There's also a lot of money laying around for marketing. So, maybe if you have an idea to help a company with their with their, to market their product. You could start a pitch if you are looking for a job or looking for some type of opportunity or a way to bring in some extra income. Just start thinking about that there is extra money lying around during the fall season. It is just a thing. It is by design. It is by God's design. It is His blessings, just for you to, I'm sharing all these things for you to really start to understand the significance of this, because people are catching on, but they're not understanding that this is it's nothing new. God designed it this way. And when you understand that, it'll be a lot easier for you to navigate it and to get the good things out of it. Also, we already know during the fall season, it's cuffing season. It's a great time for people to either start a romantic relationship or build on a romantic relationship. It's also a time for people to just come together as a community. In my last video, we talked about how we need to kind of be aware of sifting through the many opportunities that come our way. But in this video, we're just going to talk about the abundance that is available to us. But you can kind of go back into that last video and check out information from there. So continuing on, there are a lot of habitual things that we're used to, whether it was designed that way or not. These are just things that always kind of happen during the fall season. So we know that, people are getting new jobs. So that might be something that you just notice time and time again, because that's when a lot of companies are going to be hiring. So maybe you always get a new job during the fall month. But we all start school. We're, from preschool all the way to, if getting your PhD, we all are starting a new chapter in life. We're used to that well up until our 20s. A lot of people also move into a new home. So you might close on a home in the summer, but you want to move in by back to school. So that's another thing that happens during the fall season. That's pretty common. All right, so if you live in the Southern Hemisphere, it is spring, and that is so good. So happy for you. There are things that you can still get from the spring, because it is also a time for renewal. The difference, though, is instead of you seeking to gather things or collect things, in the spring, that is a great time to create something, because, you're coming out of the winter on your side of the globe, and maybe you're really introspective. So it could either be you starting a new project, maybe writing a business plan, or it could be you starting up a goal again. Maybe you fell off on something. Maybe it's a diet. Maybe it's something like that. But the spring, think about like sowing seeds. And in the fall, you're sort of like gathering things. Start to think about it that way. But the spring still is, again, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you can still benefit from this. The September through December month, which is springtime for you, is still a great time for you to be able to get a lot of great things out of the season. The spring is also a great time to move, because that is a time when the Israelites were set free from the hand of Pharaoh. So they were also moving during that time, and that was considered the first month of the Jewish calendar, the month of Nisan, which we will get into. As we continue to go through this session, we are talking about physical seasons. Seed time, which is spring, and then harvest, which is autumn, the fall. But we know God's word reminds us that anything that is happening in the physical is also happening in the spirit. And that we look at the Lord's Prayer, let it be done on earth as it is in heaven. Which is why, when I'm talking about spiritual things, when something seems like a kind of a phenomenon, you can look at it as like a spiritual thing happening. So there's a lot of money and abundance in the fall. That's something that happens by design. And if you are aware of that, you will be much more prepared and much more equipped to be able to navigate that. You maybe right now you are struggling to find a job. Well, if you understand that there is just money like everywhere right now, instead of you just sitting, on the computer looking for a job on LinkedIn every day, you're going to start getting ideas of where you can come up with a business plan and go to a business and say, hey, I have this idea. Would you, to help you with marketing for your company, which hey, if you have that skill set, I would definitely tap into that this season, because there are many companies who need help with that. So they have money sitting around. It just may be that they don't have the resources for the thing that you're looking to offer. But if you know that there is money there for something, perhaps you can kind of adjust your game plan. Also, when you're applying to a job, yes, you're qualified for it. Yes, you submitted the resume, but it could be that when you get the job, you didn't get it because you were like the best candidate. Maybe it just so happened that the top two candidates decided at the last minute to drop out, or maybe they found a better position elsewhere, and so then you got the job. Or perhaps there's 500 applicants, but the position has been open for so long that because you were one of the last 10 people to apply for the position, the hiring manager decided to pull from the most recent people who applied, and that's how you ended up getting the job. So when I say spiritual, it's not completely linear. He's always working in our lives. It's not kind of just set up as, okay, best person for the position, they get the job. That's not how it ever happens. And so that's what I mean by like spiritual. All right, I really want to hone in on the significance of spring and the fall, which is why we're even starting to talk about this with October theory. And I'm going to give an example. A lot of you are probably already picking up on it, but I just want to really drill in this concept, because like 5 years ago when I had this awakening, I was so excited, and I tried to talk to people about it, and they didn't really get it. So I want to drill into it. Even though people are having this awakening, I want you to be even more equipped than a lot of people right now, because no one is breaking down the whole concept of why this matters so much. So let me give examples, and I'm going to read. If you have a seed and you had to plant it in the ground, nowhere else, like outside on the ground. So don't try to think about other, greenhouse or anything like that. Would you try to plant it during the winter when the ground is cold and hard, or would you hold on to that seed and keep it protected and plant it in the spring? All right. Also, if you had crops that were growing, but you knew winter was coming, would you begin to harvest those crops in the fall, or would you wait until the winter? This is the same thing when we are working on a goal or starting a new chapter. We can use our discernment to lean into certain moments where our efforts will be more effective based on the right timing. Knowing this will also help many of us to finally obtain some things you have been struggling with for years to obtain, because, the winter is not the best time to really focus on a goal. I just really want people to understand that. And that's why I'm working so hard to just to paint that picture and make it clear. Just because it's January 1 and it's the first month of the calendar year, it does not mean that you should feel beholden to that month to start something new or to really give it your all. You are setting yourself up for failure when you do that. And I'm a winter baby. I'm a New Year baby. So naturally, I want to kind of have everything together by that time. But even I know and had that awakening that the winter was not it. It just wasn't. And we are going to go into a history lesson so I can prove to you why October theory is it's such a great awakening, and why we should look to the spring or to the fall to really start a new chapter. All right, so we're going to start with the history lesson. So up until 46 AD, most of the world celebrated the new year in March, the springtime. And so March signifies renewal and rebirth. So it was a great time for people to celebrate the new year during this month. However, with the adoption of the Julian calendar by Julius Caesar in 46 AD, people around the world started to celebrate the new year on January 1. However, it wouldn't be until the 16th century until it was adopted kind of more officially and formally by the entire Western civilization, when Pope Gregory decided to implement the Gregorian calendar in order to make things more cohesive. And so they had January 1 as the new year, and then that was when the entire world started focusing on January 1 as the new year, as opposed to March. However, before then, Christians celebrated the new year with the mark of Passover and Easter. So that's just, again, really important for you to understand that we were never celebrating the new year in the winter season. It never made sense. And while it did make sense, maybe just to adjust the calendar and to make everything cohesive, it turned into a time where people felt like they needed to start all of their projects and plans in January, just because it was the start of the calendar. Which, again, it makes sense because of how we're designed and how we're wired to start things, at the beginning. But if you understand now that the beginning was March and has been for many cultures and civilizations, you will be able to let go of January. As you can have fun and celebrate, but when you can let go of that, it'll help you. Me personally, I don't focus so much on the fall as my new year. I focus on the spring, but again, either way, they're better than focusing on the winter. So also remember, in Exodus 12:2, the Lord tells Moses that Passover signifies the month of Nisan, which is their first month of the year. So again, this makes so much sense because, spring is a symbol of new birth, new beginnings, and honors the resurrection of Christ. And as I mentioned before, many other cultures celebrate their new year in the spring, starting with Persians, for Nowruz. There's the Thai New Year as well that happens in April. And then again, like the Sikh New Year that happens in April. The Hindu New Year is also celebrated in the spring as well. And that's really just important to note because yes, there's this calendar month, but people still held on to that because they understood how important it was to focus on that renewal piece and to not let go of that. Also, I want to say that it does not seem like the Pope was doing anything nefarious by agreeing to move the new year to January. He was not trying to distance like the new year from Jesus. I know I was when I was doing my research years ago, and I found out that we used to celebrate the new year in March. I was like, what? During my research, they talked about how April Fool's Day, this is urban legend, but they're saying that April Fool's Day came about because people who still celebrated the New Year in March were called fools. And I was like, you're trying to call God's people fools? But my understanding is that the Pope did it more so to keep that Passover and the Easter time holy, because you can imagine all the things that we do during New Year's. There's a lot of debauchery and stuff going on. And so by doing that, you're able to separate the two. And you have to think back during the past, a lot of Christians and Catholics, they were more in tune with the habitual things that are done in the Christian faith. So I don't think the Pope could have ever guessed that people would forget that Easter, Resurrection Sunday, whatever you want to call it, was like a renewal. And that was the time to focus on new beginnings. I don't think he could have ever guessed that, because many other cultures still held on to their own new year. I think the thought was to give the world their new year, but to still hold on to their values. But as we know, over time, we adapt to the dominant culture. So I just wanted to share that. I don't think it was anything nefarious, but again, knowledge has increased, an awakening has happened, and more people are just becoming aware of just the goodness of God and how He's designed us. Another thing I wanted to share, there's a lot of things that we do not understand just as Christians, because the early Christians were more connected to their Jewish roots. Like, I do know that Easter, the title Easter is connected to a pagan goddess. However, the egg itself is not pagan. It comes from a Passover tradition, which Jesus was the last Passover lamb. And so some things that are connected to Easter or Resurrection Sunday come from Passover. The more we study and the more we focus on God and digging into His Word, the more we're able to have these awakenings. For me, I had this awakening 5 years ago when I was struggling to accomplish my goals, and I was like, Lord, there has to be some other way. Like, I cannot keep struggling. What is going on? And through prayer and just spending time with Him, I came across the scripture where He talked about Passover and where He talked about Nisan being the first month of the year. And from then on, I always focused on having the spring as my new year, and life just got 10 times or maybe 1,000 times easier for me, and I was able to stick to my goals. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you, because whether it's spring or October, it's just the idea that the winter it doesn't work. When God made us, He made us out of the ground, out of earth. And so there are parts of us that just that's how we operate. We're still connected to the earth. And it's not to say that you can't start a project in the winter, but the idea is that many of His people are struggling. He's given you ideas. He's given you so many things that can help you financially, but you keep failing at it because you keep trying to sow your seed on hard ground. You keep trying to grow during the winter time when you should be resting and being more introspective and focusing on self-care. So this is why it's so important for you to be able to tap into this awakening, because it's not just Christians who are going to benefit from this, but He designed this world for His people, for His children. So this is why it is so important for you to understand this. And again, not focus so much on the traditional calendar, because that was just to keep the whole world together. Everyone had their different calendars, everyone had their different days, and nothing was consistent. Imagine like trying to do business with people in another country right now. It would be chaotic. Someone would say Tuesday when they really meant Thursday, right? Like it would just be it would be too off. And so the idea was just to get everything in alignment. However, things happened over time where people kind of got out of whack. However, God, He always finds a way to reconnect with His people and to reconnect with His children. So I'm just so excited to talk about this because like I said, I had this awakening about 5 years ago, maybe more, but I'm just really happy to share this with you because you deserve a better life. You don't have to struggle. There is something in you where you felt like a failure simply because you're just starting things at the wrong time. So I just, again, want you to be able to rewrite your story, write your own story, and for you to stop telling yourself that you're a failure and stop telling yourself that you're not able to complete tasks or complete goals, because January 1 was never, it was never the goal, right? So I'm going to keep going, but I have to share that because that was me. And I was like, God, there has to be a better way. I'm almost finished. I'm almost finished with this, but I wanted to share some other things. In Matthew 16, Jesus, he's telling the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he says, you know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. This just reminds me of how many of us Christians are moving away from that spiritual piece, and we're not as aligned with things. I mean, just even through my studies, I learned that like God had, the children of Israel celebrating every new moon. And this is not about worshiping the moon. It's just being able to identify and see and study things and see what's going on, and having discernment and being able to, and that's what ended up happening. I was able, through God's wisdom, through his favor, through his love, I was able to discern that something was not right about setting a goal in January. I was like, it didn't feel right in my body, but for whatever reason, like it's being marketed to us as that way. And why? Because it's the start of the year. That makes so much sense. It's the start of the year, but it's not the original start of the year. And it's not the way most civilizations and culture start the year, because they chose the spring, which again, that's new birth. That's we start our lives in the spring, in our spring season. So it's hopefully by now it's making sense to you, and you can really just like kind of forgive yourself and let all the times where you've dropped the ball, where you can just really like let that go. And for whatever reason, if you feel like the fall is just not the time where you want to really dig into that, and like you're not looking for a new job, or you're kind of ready to just rest and get into winter, that's fine. But don't feel rushed to jump into like your goals in January. You can start writing things down and you can get really introspective and think through things, but it's just much better that you start those closer to the spring. And I say that because I mean the number is just it's insane. So I think it's 92% of people quit their New Year's resolutions by January 19th. That is not normal. That's not normal. That is not a normal, that's not how. Think about human ingenuity. Think about like the technology that we have today. And you quit your resolution 19 days in? And some people don't even start on January 1, so less than that. Something has to be off. It has to be off. And again, this is not anything that's nefarious that happened. I think it's just Christians got disconnected from who they are. And we, for many reasons, didn't want to, I guess, be bound by like the law. And so there's a lot of things that we don't do. But if we did them, they're to our benefit. Like me personally, I just don't eat pork anymore, but it is to like your benefit to not have it. And you're not bound to have it. Nothing is bad. Nothing spiritually bad is going to happen to you. Although I just stopped because I would always get nightmares after eating it. But it's just that, there's just I think a lot of us are having awakening. And I also don't know how much of this I'm going to share on my video. All right. So the next thing I want to share is, and this is kind of fun because we're going into the Christmas season, is the Magi follow the star, which leads them to the place where Jesus is. That is another concept of being able to use Earth. I mean, it's a star, it's in space, but you're utilizing something that the Lord has created to be able to identify what's happening. My point in sharing both of these scriptures is that we're spiritual beings, but we have to be able to use discernment here on this earth to navigate life. And something like this, it'll help you greatly because you will be able to tap into blessings that are just natural, that'll just happen for you, and that many other people are tapping into. So again, I just think it's so important for you to not miss out on it. The last two things that I'm going to go over is we talked about, and this is kind of a bonus. if you're still with me, thank you so much for taking out time to focus on you and to grow. So now we're going to focus on, we talked about a lot about the spring and the fall season and what are the blessings that we can get from it? How can we tap into those blessings, and what we should be doing when it comes to, I guess, personal growth during those seasons. Now, in the summer, think about what we naturally do, like even as kids, like what's happening in the summer. Think about, I would say that's the time for you to seek adventure, take risk, explore. It's very much the opposite of like what you would do in the winter. And now in the winter, you want to focus on pouring into self-care. Not so much dieting. Yes, do your best to eat healthy, but focus on, when I say self-care, focus on, getting more sleep. Also, just listening to your body. And if you are starting to work out, do like low impact workouts. Also, during this time, maybe go to your yearly health exams. Look into getting a therapist. Take a trip. Focus on nurturing relationships and staying connected with people. And then women, taking this a step further, think about what you do during your monthly cycle when it is your winter season. You may want to cook, watch a documentary, drink warm things. Like, you're focusing on caring for yourself. And that was another thing. When I started focusing on my menstrual cycle, I knew that if I'm resting during my winter season, like during that, when you're like actually on your, when you're menstruating, I don't know if I'm going to say that word, but then I should be actually resting during the winter months. Another time you can kind of create a new year for yourself is your birthday. Again, I'm a winter baby, so it was pretty easy for me, but it was still like a struggle to make that my new year. So yeah, that is everything. I hope that you have tapped into this awakening. I hope that you are able to not just download the knowledge, but that you can tap into the wisdom, into God's blessings, and that you can really have that discernment of how to apply this new phenomenon. It's not really new, but I hope that you benefit from it. I hope that you grow from it. I hope that you are able to unlock some things that maybe you've just been spending years and years and years trying to do. I hope that you can do that. And again, yeah, that's all. I'm gonna end it here. Okay, I'm back. I don't like the way I ended it. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm like moving around. So wait, hold on. Okay, I'm like moving around so much here. But last thing I wanted to say about this topic is that when people start to get these awakenings, sometimes they start, and again, I think this is why Christians started to move away from a lot of things, is you want to get away from like the religion piece, right? When you're bound by like the law. So you're having this awakening on October theory, right? I keep calling it that, but it's just the abundance of the fall season, right? And you're discovering now that the new year, we used to celebrate the new year in March, and many cultures still do that. And that might be another great time for you to set your New Year's resolutions, right? But there could be a moment where someone presents an opportunity to you in the winter, and it may work for you. Don't turn that down. Like, don't be so bound to these things. This is when we go back to that scenario about the seed, right? Now, you could actually have a greenhouse, or you could plant that inside, right? So the point is for you to understand that if you are going to do something that is sort of that goes against the grain, you will have, that you'll need additional tools. Like, you'll get that, right? So maybe someone wants to work with you or start a new project in the winter, and this is the time that will work for them, and this is going to be a great opportunity for you. Maybe that because it's the winter season, I don't know what your greenhouse would look like, but maybe you would cut down on some other things that you were doing. Maybe you're able to juggle a lot during like spring and summer and fall, but because it's the winter, and maybe you need an additional hour of sleep, but you're also working on this new opportunity, you're going to cut some other things out. You're going to find, you're going to eat healthier because that you need to just be more alert, right? So you're just going to do things that help you to navigate what's going on in the winter, and makes you a lot more successful during that time. So I don't want you to all of a sudden be like, oh my goodness, I can't create a business plan in the summer because, I can only do that in the spring. No. The idea is just that a lot of people have been struggling. And like I said, 92% of people not pursuing their dreams and goals, that is like, God is blessing us every single day with ideas, okay? Like, man, there are so many things he wants to bless us with. In the Bible, it says that a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. But you have to apply that gift. You have to do something with that gift. And that's why I wanted to talk about this subject, so that you can be better equipped to navigate how to accomplish that goal of when it's best to work on that goal, right? What are some other things since I came back? What are some other things to share? Yeah, like women, or if you're, even if you're a man and you're starting a diet like with your wife or something like that, but even just for women, like if I'm starting a new project, or if it's a diet, or like if I'm doing like a cleanse or something, I'm not starting right before my period. You're setting yourself up for failure. No, I'm starting a few days after, or maybe a week after, so that by the time the next one comes, the next cycle comes, you're already in the groove, you know? I will continue to share these things here on this channel. That's what this channel is all about, is really just discovering things about ourselves. Because, but I just, in my heart, I know that someone is watching this and they have just felt like a failure, because I talk to so many people every single day and they're always like, oh man, I dropped the ball on this. And then you feel like a failure and you feel like you can never do anything good for yourself. But we accomplish goals every single day on our job, right? It's just that when it comes to our personal time, it's different. And that's why we want to tap into these, natural blessings that God has for us when we apply it to the seasons, so that we can navigate those things. Yeah. But so I'm just so happy for those of you who have who joined me on this YouTube channel, on my YouTube journey. Again, I'm a coach. Please reach out to me if you are ever looking for any one-on-one support. But if not, I'm here. We'll be sharing as the Spirit guides me to share some fun nuggets with you. Yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to just learn and become a better person. I hope to see you again.